Now, we've recently reviewed both the M15 R7 and the Legion 5i Pro, which are both 2022 laptops with 12th gen Intel CPUs in them. Now, these are both solid mid-range laptops, and the specs of these are pretty much identical. So I thought, do you know what? This will make a great comparison to see, if you're spending your money, which is going to be better between these two. So before we start sort of comparing them, we're going to quickly talk about price and the specs, and then we're going to go from there. Now, let's start with the M15R7 from Alienware. This laptop has got an i7 12700H CPU with a 3070 Ti, the base 1080p 165Hz panel, 16GB of DDR5 RAM, and a 1TB M.2 Gen 4 SSD. Now, the Legion 5i Pro, on the other hand, also has that same 12th gen 12700H i7 CPU. It also has a 3070 Ti GPU, 16GB DDR5 RAM, 1TB Gen 4 SSD, but the screen on this model is a 16x10, 2560 by 1440p, sort of higher resolution, 500 nit display. So a big difference between these two on the screens. Now, the M15R5 can also upgrade to the QHD panel, but you're talking an extra £200 to do that on a laptop that's already a lot more expensive than the Legion 5i Pro. So specs being almost identical other than the screen, let's talk about the prices. The Legion 5i Pro comes in at £1,500 and the Alienware M15R7 comes in at about £2,000. Now, both of these machines have different offers and coupons at all times, but usually the Legion is a fair bit cheaper than the Alienware. So in this review tonight, we're going to see, is that price premium for the Alienware worth it? And what are the differences between these two laptops? So we're going to take a look around the chassis and compare the two. So firstly, looking at the size of these laptops, both being 15-inch machines, but the Legion being a slightly higher 16:10 aspect ratio, the sizes are very similar between the two of them. The Legion is slightly thicker, the Alienware is slightly deeper, but other than that, if you're picking up either of these, they look very similar in size. And weight-wise, both of these are approximately 2.5 kilograms. There was literally 20 grams extra weight on the M15R7 than the Legion, so you're not going to notice the difference in weight between these two machines. And with regards to the ports, both of these have a great port layout with ports on either side of the machine and ports on the rear, but the Legion takes the slight win from having an extra 2 USB-C ports over the M15R5. Other than that, they've both got 3 USB Type A's, they've both got HDMI 2.1, they've both got RJ45 and a dedicated power jack, and they've both got a headset jack. So they're very similar ports-wise, but the Legion does have 2 extra USB-C ports. Now, before I open them up and look at the performance, we're going to take a quick look at the build quality and the external chassis. Now, build quality between these two, I don't think there's much in it. They both feel pretty great. I'd say there's ever so slightly more creak on the M15R7 than the Legion. Now, you would expect being an Alienware, Alienwares are usually built like a tank, but this does have a little bit of creak on the hinges when you're sort of moving a screen around, whereas the Legion does feel rock solid. So again, a very slight win to the Legion there as well. But when we come to RGB, the win's got to go to the actual Alienware. You've got the lit rear alien head, you've got the lit Tron ring, the lit power button, and the RGB perky keyboard. Whereas the Legion, this year we've got even less than last year, we've literally got the keyboard, which is a zoned RGB keyboard. So if RGB is your thing, then you're probably going to be heading towards the Alienware. Now let's open them up and take a look inside. Both these laptops open easily with one hand. That's not that that's a big deal, but they've both got great solid hinges. Okay, so with the laptops open and logged in, we're going to take a quick look at the palm and the keyboards first before we move up to the screen. Now, when we're looking at the actual materials on the palm rest, the 5i Pro has a plastic palm. It feels okay, whereas the Alienware has the soft touch finish on the palm rest, so that does feel nicer. But as we move to the touchpads, both of them have similar feeling touchpads, but the actual Alienware is much, much smaller than the Legion's touchpad. So if you do plan on using the touchpad a lot, the Legion one does give you a lot more area to move around on. Both of these touchpads feel okay. They're not the most premium of touchpads out there. The X series has a much better trackpad than the M15, and the Legion 7 has a better trackpad than this Legion 5. But either way, the trackpads work well, they track okay, and the gestures work well. And as I said before in other videos, these are gaming laptops. You're more than likely going to be using a mouse anyway. And as we move up to the keyboard, you can see there's quite a difference between the keyboards of these models. We'll start with the Legion. You'll notice that you've got an actual number pad on the Legion keyboards. We haven't got per key lighting, we've just got zoned lighting. It's quite nice. It's not quite as bright as the Alienware, but if you're working in the dark, it does sort of shine through the keys nicely. The keyboard itself, they type brilliantly, so it's a nice feeling keyboard to type on. But the keyboard on the Alienware is unfortunately a much, much better keyboard than the Legion, and this is one area where the Alienware really pulls ahead. We've got the per key lighting, and the keys themselves feel absolutely fantastic to type on, and it's probably one of my favourite gaming laptop keyboards to type on. And that's even with just the standard keyboard. We also have the option to upgrade to the Cherry MX keyboard. So if the keyboard is the thing that absolutely sways you towards an actual laptop, then the Alienware takes the win here. And if we look at the power buttons on both of these machines, you'll see that we've got the lit Alienware head on the M15R7, and we've got just a small power button in the middle of the actual machine on the Legion 5 Pro. Now the power button on the Legion, you'll see there's a tiny little light in the middle, and that ties into your power profiles. So blue is your quiet mode, white is your balanced, and red is your performance. And there's quite a significant difference between those three profiles, and they work really well. You literally press function Q when you switch between them, and you know instantly which power profile you're in. Now with the Alienware, we've got the lit Alien Head power button. Now that shows you whether you're on battery, which shows it as yellow, mains, which is actually blue, or if you're charging, it flashes between blue and yellow. So another great feature there with the Alienware. Now with the Alienware, if you want to change performance profiles, you can do that within Alienware Command Center, or you do also have the function and F1, which toggles you onto the performance mode. So both of them can easily switch into the performance mode with a hotkey. Now moving up to the screens, there's absolutely no contest here. The Legion 5i Pro with its higher resolution, 16:10, brighter panel, is an absolutely fantastic screen. And if you're looking at the screen all day, that's something you're going to notice straight away and was going to draw you towards this Legion 5i Pro. It's a fantastic panel, it's fast, it's great to game on, and it's also great for work. Now the screen on the actual M15R7 isn't a bad screen. It's only 1080p, but it's still quite bright at 375 nits. It's still fast, it's great for gaming, and it's pretty color accurate. So it's still a good screen, but it's just not as good as this Legion 5i Pro screen. As I said earlier on, with the M15R7, you do have the option to upgrade to the much better 240Hz QHD screen, which for gaming is actually, in my opinion, better than the Legion 5i Pro. But you're talking another £200 on top of this already more expensive laptop to get that option. The webcams at the top of the machines, they look and sound like this. This is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the Alienware M15R7 laptop. This is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the Legion 5i Pro for 2022. And neither of these laptops have any way of logging into the laptop via either fingerprint or facial recognition. But if you do upgrade the panel on the M15R7 to the QHD or the 360Hz, then you do get Windows Hello included with that panel. So now let's look at the performance of these two laptops. Now they've both got the same 12700H CPU, and running Cinebench R23, which really stresses these CPUs for about 10 minutes, the Legion comes out ahead by about 1,000 points, scoring 18,000 points on the multi-core, as opposed to the M15R7's 17,000 points for the multi-core. Now looking at the 3070's TGP between both these laptops, the Legion has a 150 watt TGP, whereas the M15R7 has a 140 watt TGP. But regardless of that extra 10 watts that the Legion's got, there's not much of a difference in the actual benchmark scores. Both TimeSpy and Firestrike are incredibly close, swinging both ways depending on the test that's being completed. Now actually on gaming, the Shadow of the Tomb Raider and the Warhammer Total War were both wins for the M15R7 despite having that lower 140 watt TGP. Now spinning up some games, we're going to be looking at Apex Legends on both these machines. Now ignore the frames per second because we are actually running at different resolutions because of the screens in each of these laptops. But if you look at the actual temperatures and the actual wattages on both of these machines, they're actually very similar. Now the M15R7 is putting a little bit more wattage on that CPU, and the Legion temperatures are slightly lower, but that is because it is putting slightly less wattage on the CPU. But ultimately, these run both incredibly close when you're gaming. Neither of these machines throttle. Both of them run pretty much flat out to the maximum 140-150 watts, and the performance is incredibly good between them. So if you bought either of these for gaming, you're going to be happy. Now when it comes to fan noise on both these machines, although the Legion is slightly quieter on balance mode at 49 decibels as opposed to 51 watts on the M15, the Legion really caps the TGP down on the 3070 Ti to about 120 watts, whereas the M15R7 leaves it at 140 watts the whole time. Now, when we put them both into performance mode, they're both about 55 decibels, so very, very similar, and the performance is also very similar. And when we're actually looking at the temps of the palm rest and the touchpads, again, both these run incredibly cool, so you'll be comfortable gaming on the actual keyboards on these machines. And the Legion was just slightly cooler than the M15R7, but there really wasn't much in it. Now, outside of the gaming and the temperatures, if we take a quick look at battery life, both of these being the same sort of components, the battery lives are actually very similar. Now, the Legion scored 5 hours with our usual YouTube streaming over Wi-Fi at 200 nits of brightness and using the laptop speakers, whereas the M15R7 got 5 hours and 50 minutes. But bear in mind, the M15R7 has the 1080p panel. If you had the 240Hz 1440p panel, then I'm sure the battery life would be a lot less. But although the battery life with these 12th generation CPUs isn't great, what is brilliant is that both these feel incredibly snappy on battery. So each of these on battery will feel brilliant. Okay, so let's take it through to the conclusion. Now, these are both two fantastic laptops. If you were given either of these laptops, you'd be more than happy. They perform amazingly. The 12th gen CPUs and the 3070 Ti's are great graphics cards, and you can game solidly on both these machines, and you'll be very happy. But the elephant in the room, firstly, is the price. The Legion 5i Pro, at least in the UK, is so much cheaper than the Alienware, despite having more options out of the box. You've got a much better screen with the Legion, and in my opinion, a better all-round package than the Alienware is, and the Alienware is actually more expensive. But the advantage of the Alienware is you get a better keyboard, you get a lot more upgrade options through Dell when you're ordering this, such as you can choose the mechanical keyboard, you can choose the better screen, you can upgrade all of your RAM and SSDs through Dell if it's something you're not happy with doing yourself. But you've got to really want that Alienware to spend that much extra over this Legion when the performance is actually slightly better on this Legion than it is on the Alienware, even though the specs are almost the same. So in my opinion, unless you're getting a fantastic coupon for this M15R7 or Dell reduce the price, you'd be silly to pass up this Legion for this M15R7. The only thing that could really possibly sway you is if you want that 240Hz QHD screen and you love the actual keyboards and the actual RGB of the Alienware. I know if it's me and it's my money, I would take this Legion 5i Pro every time. Well, that's my opinion of these two laptops, but as always, I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Pop your comments down below. I'd love to know which do you prefer. Do you think that this Legion 5i Pro is easily the best buy, or is there any of you that think that Alienware, despite being more expensive, is the one for you? Leave your comments below. I love reading them. And as always, thanks for watching.